What would happen if you stopped working for a month? Imagine stepping away from your business for an entire month and coming back to find it running smoother than before. Is that even possible? If you are like most sellers, your business demands more and more of your time, always leaving you one step behind and unable to focus on what truly matters. In this video, I'll break down the exact steps you need to take to systematically remove yourself from the daily operations. You'll learn how to build a business that not only survives, but continues to grow without your constant presence. Let's dive into how you can take a full month off without ruining your business. If you are new, welcome. My name is Michael. We scaled and sold an 8-figure brand, and this is where I show you everything I've learned about business. So today we have an interesting topic. We're going to learn how to systematically remove yourself from the business so it doesn't collapse without your constant presence. The process I'm about to show you works well for solopreneurs, if you are running your business solo, or maybe you have just one general VA, but it also works for business owners with existing teams. Maybe you already have 3-4 full-time employees, but you can still follow the exact same steps I'm about to show you in this video. We're going to begin with a thought experiment. What would happen if you stopped working for a month? And I believe that this is a great question that we should really think about deeply. We should sit down and actually write down everything that could go wrong with your business if you stopped working for a month, right? So start writing that down. Maybe you would run out of stock. Maybe no one would reply to your customers. Maybe no one would pay your suppliers. Maybe your PPC campaigns wouldn't get optimized, right? Spend 30 minutes to 1 hour really figuring out what would go wrong if you stopped working for a month. The reason for this, why we do that, why does it even matter? Maybe you don't want to stop working. So why would we even ask this question? The answer is actually quite simple. This question is a great indicator of your role in the business. Therefore, also your quality of your operations and your team. Because if your business cannot run without you and all of these things go wrong once you stop working, it means that you are heavily involved in the daily operations. And when you are heavily involved in the daily operations, you can't really see the big picture, right? It's hard to step away from the business and see the big picture if you literally can't step away from the business for a week, maybe even a day. And of course, if you are involved in the daily operations, you feel the operational stress and pressure. And I remember this very well when I was managing all of the operations in our business, the shipments and the products, and suddenly your listing gets shut down. Maybe your shipment gets stuck in the customs. So you are facing this operational stress, and it's really hard to actually step away and see the big picture, think about growth. And usually this also means that you get spread too thin because you are just spinning too many plates. Right? Maybe you manage a little bit of your supply. Now, one day you are calculating seasonality for your inventory. The next day you are optimizing your PPC. And the day after that, you are dealing with a recurring defect of your product. You are just juggling too many things at once. On the other hand, when your business can run without you, it means that it allows you to be focused mainly on growth. Because if it runs without you, maybe you have a team that are managing it, so you can now think clearly about the growth of the business, about the next product. You can think about your customer. You can think about how to make the products better. You can think about all the sales channels you can use, you can leverage, right? You can also think about all the potential marketplaces you can expand to. Suddenly, your mindset changes and you start thinking mainly about growth, which is the main purpose of the business owner, right? So when you get into that position, you can think all about the big picture because you now have the trust and confidence in your team, and they are now facing the operational issues, the stress and all of the pressure, which really frees you up. It gives you the room to breathe and think in bigger moves rather than in the daily operations. And this really allows you to become laser focused, right? really figuring out what can grow your business rather than just thinking about the stuff that simply maintains it. And I think also a good way to think about this is to understand that there is a big difference between a six-figure seller and an eight-figure seller. And even if you are a six-figure seller, I believe you kind of assume that the eight-figure seller is not really thinking about his shipments, right? He's not really replying to his customers. He's not handing refunds. He's probably not optimizing his PPC campaigns, right? So what is the eight-figure seller thinking about? Well, of course, he's thinking mainly about the growth because he already has the team to handle the operations. And people often think about this backwards, right? I will build the team once I get there, once I hit a certain revenue, once I get to 1 million, 2 million, then I will build the team. But we actually want to get into this position in order to grow, right? We want to have the team, we want to have someone to help us focus on the big picture, right? So also think about the difference between the lower level seller, right? 6 figures, low 7 figures, and the high level seller, 8 figures and more, and what they actually think about, what they focus on. Because one important realization I had is that the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is, right? There were times when the aggregators in the Amazon space actually acquired only the ASINs. They didn't care about your team. They didn't care about anything else. They just cared about your ASINs, right? The reviews, the ranking, and they just acquired the brand under their operations. So they didn't really care about your systems or your team or anything else in that matter than the ASINs. But nowadays, the buyers are more interested in the business itself, right? It's not just Amazon business, but they look at the business as a whole. And here it becomes clear that the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. Because of course, if they potentially acquire the business, they are not acquiring you as well, right? So that's something important to keep in mind. And one also very important point, which I kind of already mentioned, is that the observer here is always more rational, right? The observer. Maybe you experience this when you ask another seller for an advice and they give you a great advice and you are like, how come I did not see that, right? It's so simple, right? How is this person so much smarter than me that they know the solution, that they see so clearly what I should do? Well, it's not the case. The case is that the observer is more rational, right? They see the big picture, so they can clearly identify what's working well, what's not, and what the next move should be. And your goal should be to become the observer so you can see the business and you can steer the business in the right direction. But if you are really stuck in the daily operations, you are always thinking about the next task, the next day, you are the participant and you can't really see everything as you need to in order to plan strategically, right? So disconnecting from the daily operations might really be the best thing you'll ever do for your business. Because, as I mentioned, you can't truly become the visionary if you are stuck in the grind. And it is your job to be the visionary if you are the owner of the business and you are actually trying to run it. And my last point, which here it also comes from my own experience, is that most people, most sellers I know, including me, start the business to achieve some freedom. But then they sacrifice the freedom to grow the business. And really here I see sellers that started the business 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and they never really start enjoying the freedom. Maybe the business is making great money, nice, but freedom is really a combination of both, right? About the money and actually having the time to enjoy it. So we should really try to optimize for both, at least from my perspective. Optimizing for both is much better than optimizing just for one of these, right? Because you may actually realize that you started the Amazon business because you wanted to travel, you wanted to work a few hours a week, but later you may realize, hey, I'm actually working more than in my old day job, and nowadays the situation looks like it might be harder and harder to sell the business, so I can't really get rid of it if I get tired of it. So I need to figure out a way how I can have both. I can really get my time back and enjoy the freedom. right? So this is my personal perspective that this is actually one of the most important points, right? So all of these points really summarize why we should be able to step away from our business, why we should be able to stop working for a month. Maybe we don't need to, but it's important to be in that position where we can do that. So today I want to talk about a challenge where you can challenge yourself and your business to actually schedule those 30 days to fully disconnect and actually experience what would happen if you stopped working for a month. And if you will follow all of these steps, likely nothing bad will happen because you will build a business that can run without you. That's why, in order to fully prepare for this, you will schedule those 30 days off in the next 12 to 18 months, right? We will find a date in the future, let's say a year from now, where we will plan to disconnect for 30 days, fully disconnect. I'm not talking 4-hour work week. I'm talking fully disconnected from the business. So how can we even prepare for that, right? We need to clarify the goal, what we are trying to achieve, right? I always like to be very specific, as you can see at the beginning of the video. I try to be very specific with the objective, right? So I don't want to waste your time, so you know what we are going to talk about. And it is also important, whenever you have a project like this, to specify the goal, what we are trying to achieve. So in this case, we want to prepare our business to operate independently for a month, which also means that the business doesn't collapse. There are no major issues, right, that would cause long-term issues with the business. So we can then gain the freedom to focus on higher level activities or personal time, right? What we talked about, we want to get back the time so we can actually focus on higher level activities. But once you have the time, it's up to you what you do with it, right? Maybe you will split it 50-50 between your personal time and the business growth. Or maybe you will decide that now, since the business is more automated, you will just enjoy the profit coming from the business and enjoy your free time, right? So this is really your decision once you get to that point. Of this challenge, there are basically 2 levels. The first level, the easier one, is to make the business run without you, right? So the business is maintained. When you leave, the business is maintained. Nothing goes wrong, it just hums along, right? But the second level of this challenge is to set up a business that can actually grow without you, which means that if you leave and then come back, maybe there's a new product that's been launched, right? Maybe a new influencer marketing campaign launched where you were not there, right? Something that could actually grow your business happened without your presence. And this is, of course, a little bit more complicated, but we will cover both of these levels. But we will begin with the business that can run without you, because that is the most important step. And here's a little tip. If you have a seasonal business, you can schedule this time off right after the high season, right? I don't expect you to disconnect during your high season, right? That would be silly. So we are not going to do that. Our business was highly seasonal during Q4, Christmas. So basically January, late January and February, slowing down, then Chinese New Year. So that would be a perfect time for me to schedule 1 month off. But maybe you have a summer seasonal product, so schedule the month off right after the season. Once you commit, one of the most important things will happen, and that is a mindset shift. Because this is when you will start battling your limiting beliefs. A lot of sellers think in this way, right? How can I be more productive? You have all of these things on your to-do list. So how can I get these things done today, right? I'm reading productivity books because I just want to get one more task done today. That's how I grow the business. Well, this helps definitely. And of course, if you are launching the business, this is extremely important. But if you are already selling, if you're at 6 figures, mid 6 figures, maybe even 7 figures, your mindset should really shift to this. How can I make this happen without me? Because once I commit, I know that a year from now, I'm not going to be there to do these things, right? So how can I make this happen without me? And who can do this just as well as me? Really thinking in a different way, thinking more as the business owner rather than the operator. Now, we can begin. How to remove yourself from the business, right? How we can make things happen without you. So first of all, I want to cover some basics. We need to understand that the business is a machine. We need to look at the business as a machine. So first of all, you are not your business. It may look like it right now because everything revolves around you. You are holding everything together. You are making all the decisions, right? You are assigning all the tasks. But this should not be the case. You are not your business. It's important to get detached, even from your perspective, right? Change the perspective. That's the first step before we actually take the steps to literally detach yourself from the business so it can operate independently. The way to look at your business is to see it as a machine, right? There is some input that goes into the machine, and then we have some output. In other words, it can be a simple example. You spend 3 hours of work, that's the input, working with your inventory forecasting spreadsheet, right? You follow some steps. Maybe you have specific steps to update your spreadsheet. Then you have specific steps to determine the order quantity, which is the output. Very simple, right? Input, which is the labor and some expertise required. Then we have the machine, which is some tool and maybe some process. And then we have the output, which is the order quantity, right? That's what we tried to get by spending these 3 hours of our time. Now, if we zoom in at the machine, we will see that there are different parts of the machine, right? We take a closer look and see that the machine has various parts. And I call these parts systems. And the key understanding here that each system has a specific function. And think about it this way. These are the vital functions of your business, looking at it high level, right? I stepped away from the business and now I'm looking at the business and I see these parts where each part is a system and each system has a specific function. So really the first step is to understand these functions and map them out, right? So we can see that maybe there's product development, right? How the business creates value. We develop new products. Maybe there is supply and inventory management, right? We are trying to maintain optimal levels of stock. That is the function of the system. One of the systems may be customer service, where the function of the system, of the part of the machine, is to keep our customers happy, right? That is the function of that part of the machine. So we map out all of these parts of the business. The next step is to actually understand which of these functions can grow the business while which of these functions just maintain it, right? And really this brings me back to the levels of this challenge that we have. Getting out of the maintenance of the business and then getting out of the growth, which means my business runs without me. Level 2, my business can grow without me. In simple terms, what maintains the business is something that cannot grow it. That particular function, that particular system of the business cannot grow it. Let's say customer service. No matter how much I try, how quickly I reply to buyer messages, how quickly I handle my refunds, that's not going to double my business. Of course, it can affect the growth, right? Positive reviews, customer experience, but it does not directly doesn't directly change the revenue of the business. It doesn't directly grow it, right? The same for supply and inventory management. I cannot necessarily double my business by optimizing my supply chain. However, what can grow the business is product development, for example, right? Launching new products, that's how we grow the business. Expanding to a new sales channel, that's how I can grow the business. Running a marketing campaign, that's how I can grow the business, right? So maintaining is basically everything that maintains the current level of revenue, our current operations. If it would start to fail in supply and really messing up this function of the business, our revenue would probably go down, which means that we failed at maintaining the business. However, growth doesn't really affect, like product development doesn't really affect the current level of revenue, it can grow it. So if we fail at product development, it means that our business likely won't grow, right? So this is how to think about it. Very important to differentiate these business functions, the system, into two categories like this. And lastly, time allocation. We want to replace our input, right? We looked at the machine, and since we want to replace ourselves, we want to be able to leave the business for a month. We need to replace our input. And in order to do that, we need to answer a few questions. How do I currently spend my time, right? What is actually my time in the business, right? Because we said, what will happen if I stop working for a month? So all of these things that will go wrong means that I spend time there. I spend time forecasting my inventory. I spend time paying my suppliers. I spend time optimizing my PPC campaign. So I need to know how I spend my time in order to replace my input. I also need to understand how much my time is worth, because this will really determine how much I can afford to delegate. And also, how much does it cost to buy my time back? Because this is what we are going to do here. We're going to buy our time back. And of course, buying our time back means investing in our systems and then paying our employees, because they will be the ones replacing our input. And for this, I prepared a tool. I will share this link right below the video so you can download it, work with it yourself. But let me jump into this tool and show you around how it works. So this is the spreadsheet. This is the tool we are going to work with. You can make a copy. There are instructions, so please do not ask for permissions, because I will get dozens and dozens of emails asking for permission. Don't do that. Create a copy so you can actually work with it and make adjustment. It is regular Google spreadsheet. So the first thing we're going to do is to write down our monthly profit and hours worked, because we need to understand what is our hourly rate as an entrepreneur, right? You have a business, your business makes profit. Let's say our business makes $5,000 per month on average in profit, right? Your average monthly profit. How many hours you work per month on average? A lot of people tend to overestimate this number. They tell me I work 10 hours every day, but when we actually start tracking the time, which I highly recommend you to do, use Toggle or any other time tracking software, you will see that it will probably be lower than your expectations, right? We want to make it as accurate as possible. So let's say we work 120 hours per month on average, which makes our hourly rate around $42 per hour. Now, the second part is actually understand the different roles I can bring on board as an Amazon seller. Of course, everyone calls these roles differently. You can add more if you wish, but these are the basic roles, right? Brand manager, supply manager, customer service agent, general assistant, potentially PPC specialist. So these people are accountable for tasks like this. So you have a rough idea what this person can help you with, right? The brand manager is involved in product development, launching products, ranking them, Amazon operations, right? Dealing with listing suppressions, price testing, split testing, optimizing listings, monitoring competition, everything that happens on Amazon. Mostly these routines, your brand manager can handle it. While supply manager is someone who simply manages your supply chain, right? Placing POs, working with freight forwarders, calculating seasonality, forecasting inventory, sending shipments from your 3PL to Amazon, and all of that good stuff. Then we have customer service agent, of course, customer service, replying to buyer messages, managing reviews. Also, a lot of people forget about this, product quality monitoring. We want to track recurring defects and fix them. General VA, usually various admin tasks, and PPC specialists, of course, campaign management. These are hourly rates, of course. It's an estimate, it's an average I've been seeing with sellers we work with, or personally in our business as well. These are the rates we are looking at for these roles. Of course, you can find people who charge twice as much. You can find people who charge half of this, but this should be around the average, right? We are talking about remote workers. So for brand manager, around 12 hours, $12, $8, and so on. You can change these, right? So these yellow ones, you can change these. So I can change this to 14, for example, if I don't believe that I can find someone capable for 12. And lastly, the business system overview, right? We said about mapping out the vital functions. So we have product development, inventory, operations, marketing, and you can see what tasks actually happen within that system, right? So it could be like specific workflows. Now, the important step, time allocation. We start actually writing down where we are spending the time, because it's important to understand where our input goes, so then we know where to replace it. So if I go to time allocation, what I would do every day, and I use Toggle for that to actually track what I'm working on, right? So maybe I spend the morning 30 minutes creating labels for my shipment, and I categorize it and supply an inventory. Then I spend 34 minutes on product research, right? So I would go product development, right? The next day I change the date. I will write down the activity and how much time I spend doing that. And let's say I spend it in management or I spend it in accounting, whatever. This spreadsheet then adds up the total hours, right? Let's say for July, I recommend to do this at least for 1 month to have really accurate data, because within the month, everything kind of happens, right? It doesn't make sense to look at 1 day or even 1 week, right? Because not every workflow happens within that 1 week. So we want to have an accurate representation of where our time goes. Of course, many people would skip this step, not do it properly, and they would basically kind of not get accurate results because they simply don't do this exercise. So there is a little workaround. What you can do is to simply write down your best estimate how you spend your time, right? So I believe per month I spend 25 hours here. Let's say here 50, that's probably too much. So I can go 45 hours in supply, 20 hours in operations, 15 hours in marketing, and so on. Here, really, as I said before, people tend to overestimate these times. Really try to be accurate with it. Ideally, do this exercise, download Toggle, then you can copy paste the report here or write it here manually. The last option here is really to do it like this, your best estimate. So we would end up something like this, right? Hours work total 153 hours. So let me actually adjust my estimate. So I would go 150 and now looking at $33, right? So what I can do now is to go to analysis. And this is the most important why we are actually doing this, to answer the important questions. We are going to analyze how we spend the time and how much does it cost us to do the work. I understand you are not necessarily thinking about yourself as an employee of the business, right? The business making money, I'm doing the work. But we really need to connect these two, and you need to see yourself once you step away from the machine. You need to kind of see yourself and your time that goes into business as another employee, right? Because you are working and the profit of the business is basically your hourly rate. So you need to look at it this way, right? That's really the difference here. To shift the mindset and suddenly step away and looking at it rationally, really, where do I spend the time? And since my hourly rate was those $35 per hour, how much does it cost me to spend 25 hours in product development? Well, it cost me almost $1,000. What about supply? I spent nearly 50 hours. Well, that's $1,600. Well, what about marketing? I spent 15 hours. Well, that's $500. Accounting, 10 hours. That's $330, right? So the total is basically around the average monthly profit, so which you can double check, right? That these two really, that these two are similar. So it costs us around 5,000, which is perfect. It works like this, but now we need to buy our time back. So how much would it cost to get my time back? Let's take a look at the delegation. If I take a look at product development, we already said that brand manager would help me with this. And so I will choose that I would delegate this to a brand manager. And of course, he can't handle everything, all of those workflows, right? Let's say he can handle 75%, right? You can choose, I go from 25, 50, 75, 100, roughly, right? Roughly understanding how much of the task we are currently doing the person can handle. In some cases, it will be 100%. In other cases, it may be less than that. But this is my best estimate that out of all of these tasks, let's say I'm currently in charge of product development, just me. So hiring a brand manager, once they are fully onboarded, they can handle around 75%. So it means that they will take 75% of these 25 hours. And I'm going to pay them for that time. I'm going to pay them $14 per hour, right? So for simplicity, I'm going to switch it for 100%, which means that I'm going to buy back 25 hours of my time if I believe that they can do all of that. And this simple example, let's say they do. And I'm going to pay them for 25 hours of their time, which is 25 times 14. And we are looking at around $400 to pay them to get our time back, because now they are accountable for that, which means that the business will save $500 worth of my time, right? And it's important to understand this because the operator who just runs the business, they don't think this way. They just see the cost. I'm going to pay $400 extra per month. That's crazy, right? Why would I do that? Well, you just saved 25 hours, which you valued at $850. So the potential saving is what? Is the difference, right? $850, that's what I got back. Now I have to pay $350 to get it back, which means that the potential saving is $500. Of course, it is a potential saving, and now it depends how I'm going to use those 25 hours, because I can choose to spend my time however I want, but ideally, I will focus on some higher level activity. All right, so let's go back to this example and let's take a look at supply and inventory. I spent nearly 50 hours managing my POs, my shipments. That's crazy, right? Let's take a look at supply manager. I'm telling you, they can easily handle nearly 100% of this. So they're gonna work 50 hours at this rate, $8 per hour. Maybe you don't believe $8, that's a little too little, right? So let's take a look at $10. So it would cost me around $500 per month to have a supply manager, saving me nearly 50 hours of my time, which I valued at $1,600. So the potential saving is $1,100. And I repeat this for every single system to get potential savings. Let's say for management, which we said management is for planning, prioritization, managing. I can't really delegate that at the moment, right? So $0. So I can't save any money there. And also this spreadsheet would show you if, let's say, you would hire someone who is quite expensive, let's say 40 hours, $40 per hour. It shows you that you would be losing money by hiring this person, right? So maybe your business currently is not making that much money, right? So let's say it's making $1,000 per month, which means that your rate is $6 per hour. So you can't really delegate in order to have some savings. You're going to be losing money if you hire, right? Because your time is not that valuable at the moment in order to delegate. But if you have a 6-figure Amazon business, well, I guarantee you that your time is valuable enough in order to start thinking like this. And as I said, the difference here, extremely important. The operator always see the expense, right? Oh my God, I'm like, I don't want to pay $1,000 per month extra for all of this labor. Well, you're getting back $2,600 of value. Of course, this is not real money. This is your time. But if you get back 50 hours per month, are you able to use those 50 hours to create value worth of $1,100? Well, likely, yeah, because you will be then focused on product development, making better products. You will be then focused on the growth, which is what we are talking about here. Why do you want to get out of the maintaining? What would happen if you stopped working for a month? Take care of all of these. Get your time back from supply, get your time back from all the operations, all the monitoring and little tweaking, from customer service, accounting, right? So get your time back here, which in our case, how many hours are we looking at, right? We have supply, operations, customer service, accounting. That's so much time. That's like half of my time or more spent here. So if I could redirect some of that time towards the things that actually grow the business, I will be able to create more value and therefore achieve the potential saving, right? That's how I need to think. So let's take a look. There is a time allocation overview where I'm spending my time. I spend most of my time in supply inventory, product development, operations, right? Some of my time in accounting. And this overview then adds up the potential savings for each role, right? So if I bring a brand manager, I'm looking at these potential savings. So there is an overview for supply manager, brand manager, and so on. But I'm going to show you one example. I was just talking to a seller who's doing nearly 2 million in sales, in revenue. And he's running his business on his own, working around 170 hours per month, right? So let's take a look at it, 170. And I believe his profits were somewhere around 25 to 30,000 per month, right? So even let's stay on the lower end, right? That's 150 per hour. And he's running his business on his own. And if you then take a look at the analysis, right, 170 hours, right? If you then take a look at the analysis, it's crazy, right? Crazy. Hiring a supply manager to manage his inventory for $500 per hour. Maybe it will be more. Like even if you, it's crazy. Like even if you put it at $12 and this one will be $16 for this rate, you can get really, really good people who you don't have to spend too much time training. We're still looking at crazy numbers, right? So if you then see it like this, you'll be asking yourself, why didn't I do that earlier, right? It's crazy. 50 hours of my time is worth so much money, and I can get it all back for 600, getting me these savings, right? 15,000 in total. Of course, we're not necessarily going to hire all of these people. We are going to probably start with the supply manager, right? We said we want to get out of supply operations, customer service, accounting, so maybe some general VA or get it to an agency. The same goes for PPC optimization, customer service agent. No brainer. Like don't reply to buyer messages yourself. Don't handle refunds, replacements, and all of that stuff. It's so cheap to replace that. Operations, supply inventory. So we are looking basically for 2 hires to get most of this time back, right? Here, if I scroll over here, we have brand manager, supply manager, potentially customer service agent, right? Crazy to think about this, right? So plug in your numbers and see what you can afford and what makes sense for you. So let's hop back to my notes and continue. So we covered the leverage efficiency and leverage assessment tool, and now it's time to get to work. We're gonna be working on the business, right? You probably heard this before. You gotta work on your business and not in it. But rarely ever people talk about what it actually means. I designed this simple framework to really explain what it means to work on your business. And I call this a designing cycle, right? We spend some time to plan and prioritize, which is what we did now. Figure out where I can get my time back. Spend time to develop process, develop the systems, develop workflows, find talent, which means hire someone, and then delegate. Train them, onboard them, train them, and transfer accountability, and then repeat, right? I'm going through these cycles, and every time I do that, I get closer to the owner's seat in the business. Each of these steps is an extensive topic. Of course, I could talk for hours about systemizing the business. I could talk for hours about hiring, delegating. Right now, we focused on planning and prioritizing. So I'm going to summarize these steps, but on my channel, you can find more information for each of these steps. First step, systemize, right? Document and streamline your operations. That is the objective here. And since we have this project, we said we're going to plan 1 month off within the next year or so. It will take us around 2 months to systemize the business. First of all, we're going to map out the high level. So what are the stages in a particular system, right? We said one of the systems can be supply, right? Try to maintain optimal levels of stock. So what are the stages? How am I going to get to the final output of actually having the stock? Well, we need to probably determine order quantities. Okay, that's the first stage. We need to place POs. We need to work with freight forwarders to send the units from our supplier to our target destination, Probably we have some 3PL, right? That's another stage. And then lastly into Amazon. Once we map that out, we can map out all of the tasks and decisions. Once again, it doesn't have to be crazy complicated, right? I'm a visual person. I like to see it like this. You know, I have a task, I have the decision, right? Just a flow, how it all flows nicely, because it is a sequence, right? Everything happens in some sequence. And if you are not sure, we're going to be using AI a lot. Let's say you can ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm an Amazon seller. I'm mapping out the tasks and decisions in my supply chain. Can you help me map out the steps in supply, what it takes, right? So he will go and write everything down for you. So you don't even have to think, right, too much about it. ChatGPT will do that for you. You say, hey, this is okay. This I need to be adjusted slightly to fit my business, but it will do like 80% of the work for you. The same goes for product development, customer service. Most of the work will be done with ChatGPT. Then we map it out. Of course, we don't want to map out every single task we do, right? Still think high level, right? So we don't gonna be like, hey, open Excel. No, we're gonna just map out the high level tasks and important decisions. Once we do that, we can start preparing templates, because each task can have a template, especially when we talk about the maintenance of the business. Most of the tasks are repetitive, right? Every single time we place a PO, we go through the same steps. Every time we book a shipment, we go through the same steps. It repeats a lot, and we can really use this by creating task templates, which I mean mostly checklists. I'm not a big fan of super detailed SOPs, you know, click here, press this button. That's crazy, right? Don't do that. Don't waste your time with it. Just create high-level overview checklists so you can. It also helps you, even if you know the workflow perfectly, it helps you just to check the tasks, what you've already done, especially you have multiple POs, multiple shipments, so you can keep track of everything in Asana or ClickUp. When it comes to instructions, of course, it's easier to train your team if you have some instructions. Once again, no super detailed SOPs. What you're gonna do is to record yourself doing the task, right? We are talking about this, you are already doing the thing, so you can simply press record, like I'm doing now, and say what you're doing. Hey, I'm gonna open this spreadsheet where I'm gonna fill in the order quantity. This is how I determine, you just say what you're doing while doing it. So you spend the time creating that PO anyway in this scenario. So you might as well record yourself, say what you're doing. And then upload the transcript of the video to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to summarize it into a checklist, maybe write down a simple procedure, right? And once again, he uses the transcript and creates the checklist for you. Then I plug it into Asana, right? This is like a sample of checklist for shipment. So each shipment goes through these specific steps. Click, click, click. I see what I need to do. I can see also who's accountable for that task, right? Different stages. Once again, you can play with it a bit to have it a bit more organized, but it is simple enough, right? And once again, ChatGPT does most of the work for you, so you don't spend any extra time actually going through this. Last step, streamlining and automating. Now we have the checklist, we have the overview of the workflow. So what we have to do is to think how to streamline this process, right? How to streamline the process and automate it. You can leverage custom tools, right? This is what I did, developing custom spreadsheets, creating automations within those spreadsheets, right? So when you are creating PO, it automatically creates a shipment and so on. Just simplify these steps. So it's easier to do it faster, right? Maybe instead of 1 hour, it will take 30 minutes, right? Wherever you can save time, you can do it to streamline. You can also leverage third-party software, right? Maybe you, instead of using your spreadsheet for PPC optimization, you're gonna use a tool, right? Using third-party software. That's why it's here, for a specific function to save us time, make it easier. And lastly, automating the flow of tasks, right? We have the flow of tasks, one task, another task, decision. Automating that within the tool, Asana, ClickUp. Once a task is done, another is assigned. If I create a PO, it means that I'm gonna need shipments. So once I click that I finished the PO, shipment tasks are created, right? Automations in this sense, because we don't want to drop the ball. We want to keep the flow going. So automating the flow of tasks. Very important point. We want to create MVP, minimum viable process. We don't need to try to make it perfect to do the job, right? Sometimes good enough is good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I understand some people when they say, okay, now it's time to systemize the business, they want to create the best workflow the world has ever seen. It's not necessary, right? 80-20. We spend the 20% of the effort who actually brings the 80% of the result. And here, it can be as simple as that. Like, don't overdo it. Make sure it gets the job done. Something to understand is also labor cost versus the time commitment, right? If we hire low-skilled employees, they are cheaper, yes, perfect, but they require more detailed systems because they are less experienced. So we actually spend more time developing the systems. So there's a balance, right? If we hire just followers, someone who doesn't have any idea what they are doing, they will be very cheap, but they will require very detailed instructions. They might even require the SOPs to tell them which buttons to press, you will spend so much time developing this. So sometimes hiring someone who's a little bit more expensive, a little bit more experienced, is actually cheaper in the sense that we don't spend as much time developing the system and the workflows for them. Keep that in mind. Next step, hiring, right? Getting the right people in the right seats, bringing someone on board. 1 to 2 months, right? We are talking about hiring 1 to 2 people in this scenario. So 1 to 2 months, that's perfectly fine. I have a full video about hiring process on my channel. It's over an hour long. I describe everything in great detail, so check it out. But for now, all you need to know is that hiring really is all about defining accountability. Rather than thinking, who do I need to hire? I need to think what I want to delegate. And we already talked about some of the roles. We already talked about some of the accountability. But once again, if you are not sure, ChatGPT is your best friend. Let's say I want to delegate some of the supply tasks, so I can ask ChatGPT, hey, act as my HR manager for my Amazon business. I'm about to hire a person who is going to help me manage my supply chain. They are going to create labels, they are going to place POs, blah, 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 blah. What would you call this role? What they would be accountable for? What else they could handle? What are the specific skills these people I require for this role, right? Just ask questions. ChatGPT will act as your HR manager, and they will answer all of your questions, and they will help you define the role, especially the specific skills, the character traits, right? Ask everything you need to really define who this person should be. Then attracting the right candidate. We want to go through the hiring process from building the funnel, filtering candidates, and lastly, onboarding. And I think it's important to understand that just a few people can make all the difference. And for some of you, especially if you are running your business alone or you have maybe one general VA or two, one good hire can be a game changer. We got to 8 figures with 2 full-time employees, 1 part-time customer service, 1 part-time VA, to 8 figures, right? You don't need 10 employees. It's not as scary as that, right? So for those who are afraid to bring their first full-time hire on board, really 1 hire, 2 hires can make all the difference. But also importantly, don't expect one person to take over everything, right? When people decide I'm gonna bring on board this person and he's gonna replace me and all of these things, don't expect this person to be an entrepreneur, right? You are an entrepreneur, you know what you're doing, you can manage multiple things at once, like you need to know a little bit of marketing, a little bit of supply, a little bit of this and that. You know a little bit of everything. Don't expect one person to be like that. If they would have the ability, they would probably be entrepreneurs themselves, right? So we want to hire people for the specific role. Last step, delegating, transferring accountability. Once again, that's all about training and transferring the accountability, building up the trust. Once again, 1 to 2 months. So in total, we are looking at around 4-5 month process to get our time back in this scenario. We want to help the employees act like owners, right? We really want them to be accountable for that particular part of our machine, for that particular part of the business. And this is a simple framework I use to make sure that they can act like owners. First of all, they need to understand why they are doing their job, right? So we need to give them the context. They need to understand why it matters and what matters the most. Because after all, we want them to prioritize their own task. We don't want to be telling them do this, do that. We want them to do the prioritization themselves. So in a simple example, customer service agent should understand how they fit into the business and how important their job is, how important it is to prevent one negative review. Because if they don't understand how important reviews are for us as Amazon sellers, maybe they will be like, it's not that important, but they need to understand that it is. And also they need to understand what matters the most, right? Replying to our customers within 24 hours, right? Being generous with replacement refunds, whatever. They need to understand all of that so they can prioritize their job and do it well. The same way our supply manager should understand that running out of stock on Amazon is the worst thing that can happen, right? So staying in stock, number one priority, so they can always prioritize. Then we need to tell them what. We need to set expectations. We brought them on board. We want them to do something. So what are our expectations? Big picture overview of their accountability. So we created the flow chart. That's perfect for that. Tell them the routines, the tasks, and basically show them this, right? This is what you're going to be doing. Very important to tell them what. And of course, lastly, how. Having some steps, some instructions, also teaching them with tools. Maybe we developed a spreadsheet, right? So we need to show them how to use it. And so they are fully equipped to do the job as well as we do it and act like owners. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight. We should do that gradually, right? We start with simple stuff. We build out the trust. We see that they are a good fit. So we move more stuff onto them. That's why it takes 1 to 2 months and not 1 to 2 days. Then repeat, right? As I said, it is a cycle. So first time, maybe we systemize supply, we bring on supply manager, then we systemize Amazon operations, product development, we bring on board brand manager. Also some risk mitigation. We're going to be leaving for a whole month. It's important to have some emergency protocols. I believe that here, defining the accountability for issues that might happen is important, right? You know the thing, someone saying it's not my job, account gets shut down and not my job, like I'm not going to solve it. It's important to define accountability for these issues. Like we are aware what can happen, right? Our shipment gets stuck at customs, our listing gets shut down, our images get removed, all of these things. So write down just, hey, if listing gets shut down, brand manager, you are accountable for fixing that. And with that, we don't necessarily need to write down a step-by-step procedure how to fix that. But we need to know that our team knows where to get answers. Because I assume you also go somewhere to get answers. You don't know everything, right? So maybe you are part of some group. Give them access. It's important that they know where to get the information the same way you would. And also writing down every question from your team, having some form of FAQs is important. And now, since we have our team on board, let's say 6 months from now, 8 months from now, we can start a short-term experiment. Step away for a week and then monitor closely, right? Some things will go wrong. We will be just standing. It doesn't mean that we disconnect. We just stop working and just monitor closely every day, monitor as our team is performing the tasks, as they are reporting, to really see that there is nothing wrong. And if they report an issue and they need your help, don't give them answers. Don't be like, hey, this is how we do it. It's done. Don't make them rely on you. If they, during this period, if they ask for your help, just don't give them the answers and let them figure it out. Well, and now it's the time to actually do it. Right? The time comes, the time flies by when you work on this and really the date approaches. It's important to do it and commit, disconnecting for the month. Because if you don't do it, you won't really identify these little things that will be draining your time. Maybe it's the employees that just are used to coming to you and asking you questions every single day. So if you don't disconnect, you won't identify these small cuts that will drain your time, right? We need to do this to be able to truly disconnect from the operations so we can then fully focus on the growth of the business. So what to expect? Well, some things will go wrong, of course, but it likely won't cause as much trouble as you would initially expect, right? You will realize that your employees, if you give them the freedom, if you let them act like owners, they are actually very capable to solve the issues. Of course, this is not a general rule that it's applicable to everyone, but a lot of the sellers I talk to, they were very surprised that once you give them the freedom, like, hey, I'm leaving, it's all you, they really rise to the occasion and do what needs to be done. But maybe they won't, which means that they are not a good fit. You found out, very good, replace them. Because you need to be in a position where you can do this without your business collapsing. And lastly, reflection, right? Sit down, what went well, what didn't, what needs to be fixed, who needs to be replaced, who can be promoted, and prepare for the next round. You can do it again within 6 months or a year, because as I said before, then it's your decision, but it's important to be in a position where you can do it. There is some inspiration of entrepreneurs who manage to get into that position, right? I have these interviews on my channel with Fernando and Mariana. Great story, highly recommend it. Alex and Tom from Honest FBA, we also have a great interview. And really, these are not 5-minute interviews, right? We go into detail, 40 minutes, 36 minutes, very important to listen to it and learn how it can look like once you get into that position. Then we have Ben, right, who really started as a sole entrepreneur. He hired 1-2 employees and basically dropped his involvement in his daily operations to minimum over quite a short period of time, so highly recommended. Now, resources. We have the tool that will be linked below. We have the hiring blueprint for Amazon sellers. That's my YouTube video. I will link it here on the screen so you can check it out. That really covers the hiring process in a lot of detail. And then some book recommendations, right? I believe that these books are extremely good. The E-Myth, then we have the Clockwork. Also very nice. This challenge actually comes from that book. Then we have Traction they cover the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Very good. And that's it for this video. So I will see you next week.